Over the last decade, Minecraft SMPs have become one of the most important parts of the game, often keeping the game on its feet or outright reviving it like it happened in 2020. And after all this time, there have been countless iconic SMPs that have included countless iconic players. And in today's video, I will be putting all of the major Minecraft SMPs on a tier list, ranking them based on many important aspects. The tiers will go from mid, meaning that the SMP was mediocre at best, to decent, meaning that the SMP was somewhat good. It'll then go to entertaining, awesome, and peak. So without a further ado, let's get into it. Alright, so the first SMP that we have is Dream SMP. It was started in early 2020 by Dream, and there's so much history with this SMP, and I know everyone wouldn't just put it at peak, but it started out as a normal SMP between friends, and as time went by, more and more YouTubers joined in on this SMP, and as basically everyone knows, by 2021 it became a spectacle. Like, this SMP completely changed Minecraft forever. It turned Minecraft SMPs into mainstream entertainment, and made the whole roleplay / lore focused SMPs explode in popularity. I'm pretty sure one of the scripted events, someone streaming the Dream SMP got like 800k live viewers or something. It was absolutely insane. And look, if you weren't there for it, I kind of do feel bad for you, because look, I'm just immediately gonna put the Dream SMP at peak. I mean, it just was peak in many aspects. It basically kickstarted a lot of the other SMPs that are on this list. The whole L'Manberg War, Disc Saga, Doomsday War, Prison Arc, Egg Arc, all of that stuff was absolutely peak. And I think it ended at a pretty good time as well. It wasn't overstretched. It's just one of those SMPs that completely revolutionized Minecraft, and for that reason, it will just have to be at peak. And for the people who actually were there when the Dream SMP was in its prime, I don't think I'm overglazing anything. I think this is just the truth. Prime Dream SMP did hit different. But yeah, let's move on to Hermitcraft. It's kind of crazy going from Dream SMP to Hermitcraft, because these two SMPs have completely different dynamics. Hermitcraft is one of the oldest SMPs ever. It got started in April 2012. It was created by someone called Generic B, and over the years it obviously got the members that everyone knows: Grian, Mumbo Jumbo, Ethos Labs, Scar, B-Dubs, all of those guys. And what Hermitcraft was and still is a long-running Minecraft SMP focused on creativity, building, redstone, community projects, and lighthearted storylines instead of PvP or war. It's one of those SMPs that looks magical because of its longevity. And you can't really compare these two SMPs, because I do think Dream SMP was way more entertaining, but then again, Hermitcraft is so incredibly iconic. And at first I wanted to put it at the entertaining tier, but then I realized because of how iconic it is, it has to go in the awesome tier. It just has to. It's one of those SMPs that I think is more of a comfort SMP that viewers can just watch because it stays consistent. There's always new seasons. There's always some crazy builds, because Hermitcraft is about building a lot of the times. A lot of these YouTubers and streamers who are a part of the SMP are absolutely insane builders. Hermitcraft probably has the craziest mega builds ever, and for that reason I think it was and still is awesome. And now we go to Unstable SMP. I think the Unstable SMP is becoming just as popular as Dream SMP was becoming. It was actually started quite recently, back in 2024. It was created mostly by Parrot, Wemmbu, FlameFrags, and Spoke. And it's a heavily edited survival SMP that combines wars, politics, PvP, destruction, betrayals, nations, and cinematic storytelling. And the Unstable SMP represents the modern evolution of Minecraft PvP content. It's kind of a mix between Dream SMP and Lifesteal SMP. It's very heavily scripted. There's world-ending threats, server-wide wars, destruction arcs, advanced PvP, and all of that. It's literally like the next generation of Minecraft SMPs. It's the most talked about and most popular SMP in 2026. And for that reason alone, I will put it at the peak tier. I think it'll go behind the Dream SMP, because Dream SMP is basically what started everything. And the Unstable SMP is the next best thing. It's an absolutely peak SMP. It's very scripted, so it's a lot different than other SMPs. But yeah, I think this is a very fair ranking. And now we go to Origins SMP. And if you don't know what Origins SMP is, it started in the early 2021. It was created by Wilbur Soot and a lot of other Dream SMP members. It was kind of a different variation of the Dream SMP. It was very weird. It was basically a modded SMP where every player had special classes called Origins with unique abilities and weaknesses. And the main dynamics of the SMP was focused less on giant wars and more on character interactions, funny situations. It wasn't that serious of an SMP, but it still definitely had a big name because of the Dream SMP. You had all the Dream SMP members playing on that server sometimes. It was Tommy in it, Wilbur, Philza, Tubbo, Rainbow, all of those guys. But by no means this was a massive SMP. It was kind of like a side SMP that turned out to be pretty just fun. And for that reason, I think I'll put it at the entertaining tier. I don't think it was particularly awesome or peak. It was just very entertaining. I don't think that's a bad ranking at all. And now we go to QSMP, or Quackity's SMP. This SMP is very interesting because it was started in March of 2023. It was created by Quackity, and this is basically a multilingual SMP connecting creators from different countries and languages. It basically basically has a mod where if you talk, there will be a translation above your character, so basically everyone on the server can understand what you're saying. And the main dynamics of this SMP was roleplay, mystery lore. Definitely isn't as big as other SMPs. It's more on the lighter side. It's kind of more entertaining than anything. But, it still became one of the most globally successful Minecraft SMPs because it connected a lot of people together from a lot of communities. It pushed Minecraft SMPs into a truly international territory. It's a very unique SMP, and just because of the way it connects a lot of people together, I think I will have to put it at the bottom of awesome. I think the main factor that makes it awesome is the fact that there's creators from many different countries that can still be on the server and can communicate with everyone else because of the feature where everything just gets translated. And now we go to Epic SMP. It was started in January of 2021. It was created by Matt Watson and creators connected to Jay Schlatt. I'm not really that familiar with this SMP, but from what I'm seeing, a lot of people played on this SMP, like Technoblade, Tommy, and Jay Schlatt, Wilbur Soot, Ludwig, even Ninja and stuff. And from what I've seen, it was a chaotic comedy focused SMP with heavy emphasis on jokes, absurdity, trolling, and cross-community interactions. I think it was one of those SMPs that became famous because it united creators way outside the normal Minecraft YouTube, because there was Ninja, Ludwig, Moist Critical on it, I'm pretty sure as well. And for that reason and that reason alone, I think I'll put it at the entertaining tier. I don't think it was a revolutionary SMP, but I definitely do think it was pretty entertaining. And now we go to Donut SMP. Donut SMP is kind of like the dark horse of SMPs. It was apparently started around 2020, created by Dr. Donut and his community. And this SMP is way less creator centralized and more community based. And the whole SMP is an anarchy, geopolitical SMP focused on wars, alliances, PvP, kingdoms, betrayal, and grinding. A lot of it is grinding. The main dynamics of this SMP is nations, wars, PvP, and just a heck of a lot of grinding. It's one of these SMPs that can really help you grow as a new YouTuber, I'm pretty sure. Because, Dr. Donut streams a lot on it, and it's more of a public SMP. And, for that reason, I think I'll put it in the entertaining tier. I think it's definitely a very good SMP. And now we go to Lifesteal SMP. It's probably the second or third most popular SMP ever. It was started in 2021, created by Parrot and some other related creators. And, the whole premise of the SMP is something I probably love the most. It was a hardcore SMP where when you kill someone, you take one of their hearts, which means if you kill them when you both had 10 hearts, they lose a heart and you will get the heart, meaning that when they die, they will respawn with 9 hearts and you will have 11 hearts. It's a very crazy idea that worked out beautifully. The main dynamics of this SMP was PvP, betrayals, alliances, a lot of wars and stuff, obviously. I'm pretty sure it created a lot of YouTubers that we see nowadays, Main Peer, Clown Pierce, Parrot, and many others. I think Lifesteal basically created the modern fast-paced PvP SMPs. And just because of the legacy that it has, I think I will have to put it at the peak tier. Like, I think I just have to, because when it comes to other SMPs in the peak tier, something like the Unstable SMP, like the Unstable SMP is a mix of Lifesteal and Dream SMP. It kind of shows that Lifesteal did have a lot of influence, and it was probably the second most popular SMP right after Dream SMP ended. And next on the list is SMP Earth. It was started around November 2019. It was created by Wilbur Soot, but it included a lot of other members like Technoblade, Tommy in it, Fills Up. It was a geopolitical SMP played on a giant Earth map where creators formed countries and alliances. The main dynamics were obviously wars, alliances, politics, and stuff like that. And, this SMP was started before the Dream SMP, so this was one of the first massive modern SMPs during Minecraft's survival era. And, it really heavily influenced later geopolitical SMPs. And, the reason this SMP is pretty iconic because it helped reignite large-scale SMP content before Dream SMP exploded. And, I think I will have to put it at the bottom of awesome because it truly was a good SMP. And it was also pulling a lot of views for a lot of people like Technoblade and stuff. And last but not least, we do have SMP Live. I forgot to add it for some reason, but now here it is. SMP Live actually is one of the most underrated SMPs. It basically kickstarted everything. It was made on March 1st, 2019 by Call Me Carson. It was created even before SMP Earth, and SMP Live was a survival multiplayer server where creators were only allowed to stream while playing. And that rule made everything feel authentic, chaotic, and community driven. It was a very interesting dynamic because you were only allowed to play the server if you were live streaming. And the main dynamics of this SMP was pure creator just interaction. It was a lot of comedy, trolling, spontaneous moments, proximity chat. And it was pretty minimal scripted lore compared to later SMPs. And the reason this SMP is very underrated because it was actually very massive for Minecraft survival in 2019, way before Dream SMP exploded. SMP Live was one of the first SMPs that made Minecraft feel like huge internet entertainment again. It heavily boosted creators like Jay Schlatt and helped introduce people like Wilbur and Tommy into the broader Minecraft creator ecosystem. It basically laid the foundation for modern SMPs, SMP Earth, Dream SMP, Origins SMP, and as I said, SMP Live happened before the giant 2020 Minecraft explosion, and that's the reason why a lot of people consider it one of the most historically important SMPs ever, despite it not having giant lore wars like Dream SMP later did. And you know, for that reason and that reason alone, I will have to put it at the awesome tier. I think it was one of the most underrated SMPs, if you ask me. And you know, now looking at this list, I think I'll have to change something. I will bump down Quackity's SMP to entertaining, you know, at the top of entertaining, because all the SMPs in the awesome tier are way more historically important in my opinion. But yeah, this is basically my SMP list. I probably missed out on some major SMPs, but you know, that is my fault. But yeah, tell me what you think about these rankings.